and welcome to the Punished for Protecting Live broadcast with your host, Francesca Amato, national expert in the Americans with Disabilities Act, domestic violence and child abuse advocate, best-selling author, and founder of Punished for Protecting Incorporated. We welcome all of our viewers watching on Facebook via Punished for Protecting News and the CPS News Network. If you're watching on YouTube at Punish No More and Free to Protect, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. You can also find Punish for Protecting News on Rumble. Now, without further ado, here is your host, Francesca Amato.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that you can hear me this evening and that we don't have any issues with sound. We have been working, and that's why you haven't seen me in oh my gosh, over a month, because we've been working on a lot of technical issues, and we hope that we've gotten everything solved. We did a few test runs and everything seemed well, but this is my first live after a month, and I'm really grateful to be here. Again, my name is Francesca Amato, and I am your host for Punished for Protecting News. Where you can see it here on Rumble, Facebook, Punish for Protecting News, and on YouTube at the Punish No More and Free to Protect Network. Today we have some story, and I had the honor of meeting this wonderful, upstanding human being, this mother, and her name is Jacqueline Kent, and boy does she have some story. And today we've actually titled this An Upstanding and Protective Mother Tortured by a Judge. Yes, you heard that correctly. Don't touch that dial. I'm going to go ahead and bring out my guest, Jacqueline Kent.
Hi.
Hey, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. I just want to say that we may have to mute in between as I'm talking or as you're talking. It seems to make there be less or no backfeed that way. But I just want to say, Jacqueline, you are a trooper. I mean, you have been put through so much, and you're going so strong. And it was a pleasure meeting you and your mom in Washington, D.C. at the Mothers Glowing in the Darkness event that that I sponsored. And the interviews we did inside the walls of Congress they didn't work, and so I couldn't use them for the viewers. So we ended up doing the Mommies Glowing in the Darkness briefing, in which we've sent out to numerous amounts of Congress members, and so far very few even care. It's really scary, honestly. But Jacqueline, why don't you go ahead and tell the audience what's going on in your life right now?
Sure. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I enjoyed meeting you as well. It was such a great trip, and I met a lot of other outstanding women fighting for their children and protecting them as well. So that was just an awesome experience. I have been advocating and just trying my hardest to get through this situation. I'm in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, and I had just a really, really horrific judge, Judge Sean Smith, and he put me through the ringer through a 2-day trial in April of this year, basically stating that he could take all of my parental rights just for being a phenomenal mother and protecting my 3-year-old child who has special needs. So long story short, my son's father is extremely unfit in the ways of basically domestic violence. He's facing 4 criminal charges. He has exposed my son, or our son now, to high amounts of marijuana. So I had his hair tested, and that came back positive. So he's now full of marijuana, and he has been burned on a fire pit. He's nearly drowned, and he is just so traumatized from being ripped from my home, the only home he's ever had or ever known, and the only family being my parents that he's ever had, just to be placed in a total stranger almost home. And it's just been horrific. And every single, Sean Smith basically said that I only had, for 90 days, beginning on April 22nd of 2022, that I could only see my son for once a week for 10 minutes just on a video chat. And we're talking about a 3-year-old child. And it's just horrible. I have to see him on a video chat. Now I get 2 to 3 times a week for 10 minutes. And it's the same every time. He's already just bawling his eyes out right when I answer, even before I answer, begging to come home, saying he misses me and my parents. And it's just, sorry,
It's okay. You let it out. I know.
It's
wrong on every level.
Yeah, it's something I never thought a human being could even do to a child, let alone a parent, just for protecting them from, their other parent who is just not fit at the moment. And to go through something like that and see your child tortured and just crying every time is just, it's hard. It's hard because I feel so helpless that I can't, when he looks me in the face and says, and he even told one of the DSS workers this too, is when he looks at me and says, "Mommy, why do I have to go to daddy's? I don't want to go to daddy's house and I don't want to see him again." And then just not being able to do anything about it. It's just, it's the hardest thing I've ever been through. And I just had never was really a part of family court or anything before 2.5 years ago. And I had no clue this was happening. And there's so many thousands and thousands of mothers, parents, just in general, fathers too, who are in my position or way worse, who haven't seen their kids in years, don't even know if they're dead or alive, that have had solid evidence of abuse and neglect and everything in between that is just horrible. This just has to stop. It has to end. And I had to do a psychological evaluation because they called me delusional, and attorney Stephen DeSillis said the same thing. He kept influencing Judge Sean Smith for saying I was crazy because I was literally taking my son to doctors to get him the help and therapy he required. And that made me apparently a crazy parent. So they put me through the ringer. I had to pay $5,000 for a psychological parental fitness evaluation that I passed just seemingly. And a couple weeks ago at the last hearing, after Sean Smith recused himself, I now have Judge Paige McThenia, and she basically just said, "Sorry, you're going to have to do a psychological evaluation all over again with a different psychologist because I don't think she had all the information that was given to her in the court file," and she actually did. So it's just all.
Let me stop you for a quick second. And for anybody
Sure.
that doesn't know who I am, I'm a national advocate, and I've been doing this for now close to 15 years. And I've become an expert in domestic violence, child abuse, and the Americans with Disability Act, in which I report noncompliance of the courts. And, anybody that does know me, you guys know that I have been exposing this for a number of years. I call it the child trafficking industry. This is the gateway door. I've spoken before Congress and assemblymen and you name it, and you name it. And this what she's talking about is literally a narrative. And delusional disorder, first of all, Jackie, delusional disorder is found in less than 1% of the entire population. And what they're doing is they're hiring through the system these psychologists, psychiatrists to diagnose mothers mostly with a delusional disorder. It's impossible. It can't happen. Now, we have a high concentration of parents that have been diagnosed with delusional disorder in Erie County, New York. And every single child is a part of the family court system, and they've been taken away and all this crazy stuff. And they use this one doctor, Dr. Nathanson, and whom I've already exposed. And now another doctor came out and called me an expert, an actual ethical doctor and said, this man is a lunatic, and he won't even work with Judge Lavallo, who's the judge that just makes these haphazard decisions. And so for people that have never seen anything like this before, it's like shocking, like a judge is tormenting this mother. Yes, it's exactly what's happening. And the children are placed with their abuser, court ordered, and you're in this position where you're like, if the system is like, if I'm a victim of domestic violence, genuine domestic violence, and then the system, instead of protecting me, is also protecting the abuser, where does that leave you? You know, where does that leave you? And that's why I've been doing the work, the multifaceted type of work that I've been doing for the past 15 years. Thankfully, we're having a lot of success. They don't like our eyes on them. And my assistant, Hannah, she's really happy too, because we've been getting a lot of attorneys now that are like genuinely working with us. And what's happening is we're giving them the kahunas to fight, because now they know that they've got this team behind them, and that if the judges don't start doing the right thing, they're getting exposed. And so we have as many different ways that we can help these children and these families. The father's rights movement, and of course, I have strong faith in God, and I believe in the order of the home and husband and wife and marriage and all that. But when you have a situation like this and you have an abusive person, or a person that's just, you know, under the influence of drugs or alcohol or what have you, and they're not in their right mind, and judges just love that because they know that they can keep you longer fighting for your children, and all these trillions of dollars keep coming in, and it's through family court and CPS. And then, as we know, we've been exposing, you know, John Walsh missing and exploited. So, and I've got his daughter, Megan Walsh, and pretty soon we're going to be having that DNA exposed with the son or brother, Adam Walsh, which people are like, what? You know, they're shocked about that one. It's all coming to a head. It's all coming to a forefront finally. You know, when we went before Congress this time, you know, it was a command before Congress, because we, the people, have the right to make them shut this down. It needs to be shut down. And criminals or you know, people that harm children, they're not even being held accountable for abusing children, for physically assaulting children. They're just being, you know, you get these group homes and these various things, and then I call it child predator services. They're moving all these children all over the place. Most of them go into 20 different homes in a year. Then you wonder why some states like West Virginia have an opioid crisis the way they do, because these are like generational abuse on families, and then they produce more children for the system to destroy. And it's just heartbreaking. Arizona, New York, I mean, I do this all over the country, and I see the higher concentrations of worse abuse versus, you know, some that try to have like an semblance that it looks like a court, even though we know that it's not. So now that you've been kind of thrown into this, do you see that? Like, do you see, like, were you in shock? Like I come from a good family, and we don't do drugs or alcohol, and you know what I'm saying? We have a very strong moral compass. Were you like, how is this happening? You know?
I was, to say shocked is an understatement. I was disgusted, appalled. I was just flabbergasted. And you're exactly right. It is nothing but trafficking children and just giving them over to their abusers. It is 100% the truth. And it's unbelievable how many children are dying and are being abused and are suffering, just innocent children, and being thrown, just like you said, and then they suffer more abuse and neglect through the foster care system. And you're right, it's all about punishing the protective parent. And, you know, I'm all for any protective parent, you know, fathers, mothers, as long as you're a good protective parent and you're fit and you're doing all the right things, just like you said. You know, my son's father is a severe addict, and he just got out of his second rehab in February. And then Judge Sean Smith, not even 2 months later, placed him in his sole custody. And now they're saying that I can't even, you know, Paige McTheny a couple weeks ago said I can't even take my son to any physicians because they still think I'm making up his disabilities. And he has over 750 medical documents that state his disabilities, and it still is a question to the court. And it's unbelievable. And yeah, you're exactly right. It is. I never knew this existed, and I don't think a lot of the nation does, and that is what's sad. And you're right that just Congress doesn't really want to help. And, I've went to my governor, I've went to the lieutenant governor, and it's always the same story. And I remember you bringing this up when we were talking to Mr. Robertson about how the senators and the governors, how they do have the authority to get involved and fix these situations, but they just don't. And I can't tell you the amount of letters that I get back stating the exact same thing is, sorry, we can't get involved. We don't get involved in personal custody or legal disputes.
We don't have jurisdiction.
Exactly.
And then the Department of Justice, what they do, and you were in the one office with us, you and your mom,
Yes.
Came in, and so you heard the presentation, you were part of the presentation. He was wonderful. I mean, that was the main office that I really appreciated. But like, I'm still going to have to continue to push now because we're actually in the middle of preparing a command letter at this point. And we will get what we want. I didn't do this work for 15 years for nothing to happen. Okay. Like, we will get what we want, and people are realizing, and it's happening all over the country. So there is like millions of people that do know that this is indeed happening. There are good families in the mix, and there are, not in the system itself, but like there are innocent bystanders, innocent families that like they'll take children, or like I've had to mediate and supervise children with the most wonderful moms. And then the 5-time addict, has the children, and if I go in the bathroom and I cry kind of thing. And I've seen like where there's like 4 medical forensics on a child, and the child is clearly sexually abused by that person. Generally it's the father, not always. And I'm not against fathers. I'm all for protective, loving dads. But what we're seeing in the family court system, it's always the abusive ones, because good dads don't do this kind of thing. First of all, they would never take children from the woman. They wouldn't do it. So that's an automatic like red flag right there. And you can see it, and you can see the narrative, and the courts love that kind of person. But I'm saying this because it's the same story, different county, different state, same story. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? So, but we're going to do, like, we're about to draft a command. I'm working with a few attorneys, civil rights attorneys, and we're going to make more demands. I've worked recently, this governor here in New York, yipes. It's, there's a lot of conservative people in the state of New York. We're not all liberal, we're not. And most people are Bible believing, believe in God, have faith, care about our neighbors, moral people. And it's a big facade. They try to, just like anything else in the political realm, they try to make people feel like it's a certain way when it really isn't. Okay. It's like everybody that thinks that all of New York is like, I don't know, like all of New York City, when we have beautiful countryside. I mean, we have beautiful country. I live in beautiful country, and it's a beautiful state. It's just ruined by politicians. And sadly, politicians are evil on both the left and the right. And anybody that thinks differently is actually foolish. So there are better, but once they're involved in that system, just like if a person gets involved in any of this, and they work for it and they get their paycheck through it, and you're allowing this to happen, you've lost your soul, as far as I'm concerned, because these children are being abused and molested and physically and abused and all kinds of stuff, and they're being ripped from their precious families and so on. So if you could take a paycheck for this and work for the system and not against it, then you're a part of it. And I don't care how much you talk, you're a part of it. And so it takes people like myself and other advocates and other families to kind of just gang up, like come in mass numbers, work in mass numbers, work in teams. And that's what I'm working on now, to shut it down. Now, I was kind of going a little bit off, but what they did is, because of my constant filing complaints to the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice sending back the canned letter to everyone, basically it's a non-compliance of the ADA. The courts are just as accountable as any other venue on this planet. Okay. So they appointed in New York State, her name is Kim Hill, and she's the newly appointed chief disability officer, because of advocates saying, listen, I've got so-and-so in a wheelchair, physical and psychological injury is a disability as well. And people don't understand how that works. And so Governor Hochul, she appointed her, but it's useless. It's the same thing at the end of the day. We gave them a briefing that was put together that says that it doesn't matter if it's a bowling alley or ShopRite or the family court, they all have to follow the same federal laws, period. And they're not. And a judge does not have the authority. Judges, if you're watching, you don't have the authority to keep me out of the court with my client. You don't have the authority to do that in any state because the federal codifications protect us. And I am the wheelchair. I am the seeing eye dog. I am the emotional support dog. Okay. I just happen to be an expert, but it could be your grandma who's blind and deaf and ready to slide into the grave. If she's your support dog, she's welcome in, and she may not know what's going on, but she gives you comfort. That's part of being an ADA advocate. That's the basic level. Okay. So if I was a wheelchair, the judge wouldn't say, I've got to make an order to see if this wheelchair can come in with that person. It's no different. And that goes to show their ignorance. And the point is that they don't want to be seen for what they are, but the dam has busted wide open. Okay. People have had enough. And what does this say? Congress has been heavily blackmailed and bribed because of the lobby. Watch the video called The Lobby. I agree. And that's why I say both sides. That's why I'm saying both sides. It's not just the far left, okay, of crazy making. It's both sides, okay? And what it really is very sad to me, and I see this ignorance all the time, and I see some people that I kind of, knew from my teenage years, that they haven't matured any, and they think that they're fighting a cause that's a lost cause, and they're causing all this division amongst races. They're causing division amongst all kinds of different types of people that already were getting along just fine. And they're believing a political party, and they're worshiping the crazy political party we have in office now. They're so worried about putting down Trump that they'll take any garbage. And I'm not saying Trump is all good either. Okay, I'm just not. I'm simply saying they're all bad. And that we really need to start looking out for each other. We need to look out for our neighbors. We need to really care about our neighbors, our children, their neighbors' children. If your kids are grown, they're going to have kids one day. If this system isn't taken down, this is going to be worse than it is now versus better. Okay. For this to happen to innocent mothers that, like I said, you know what I mean? Nobody's exempt from this, and people think it only happens to poor people. That is not true. The wealthier you are, the more you have for them to take: real estate, property, gold, whatever it is. Don't be foolish. This is very demonic. It's very demonic. So
you're exactly right. It goes both ways, both sides. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor. It doesn't matter if, what your familial background is. It all is just about the money. And it's just, unfortunately, it's just making people suffer. And it just baffles me how I have done more jail time than my son's father has. And he has assaulted my father. He has abused our child, and he has went against a 50B domestic violence DVPO order. And yet I was incarcerated twice, and all because I was protecting my son. And that is, to me, it's just, it blows my mind how I could be sitting in a jail cell literally for protecting my son, while now his father has full custody. It just blows my mind. And then everything that I have said that would happen, why I was protecting him for so long from his father, has now come true tenfold and worse. So it is just, it's truly unbelievable. And the damage this is doing to children, not only are they losing their lives, but the damage, the psychological damage is just irreparable. I mean, it could be long lasting, lifelong damage. And I'm really afraid. When I got the drug test back from the child guard hair test on my son, and it came up with a level 6 for marijuana, that is extremely high. And I remember I was actually on the way driving to see you and be a part of the DC event. And I got that call from the lab, and the lab man, that actually, the reporter, called me, and he actually said, you need to get this child out. Like, this is very serious. This level is very high, and he should not have been exposed for this amount. And then I bring in another drug test, that a second hair follicle test that my son's father just did a couple weeks ago to Paige McThenia. And she looks at it, and it doubled. His actual hair follicle doubled. And so what does that mean for my son? It could mean that either his levels are doubled now, or, and I don't know the long lasting effects of, this type of just having marijuana in his system at such a young age. But it's
Well,
unbelievable.
society, it's the same thing with the vaping. Society, now that they've legalized it everywhere, and I'm not against medicinal, you have stage 4 cancer, you're not going there anywhere, you're not driving anywhere, you'll be sober, not behind a car, whatever. But medicinal marijuana, what that really is not the smoking. Okay. It's not the smoking. And I keep telling people that. My sister's an expert, globally known expert holistic practitioner who people get reversed of stage 4 cancer. We've had reversals of MS. Okay. So, I always have a joke. I take my health advice from people who look, feel, and are healthy, not, and I'm not anti the medical profession, but I'm intelligent enough to know what's actually going on in this world. And I don't just listen to everybody, and I don't get forced because they silence your speech and you can't say this and you can't say that. Well, no, honey, I like the whole entire picture. If you go to college, they teach you to have a well-rounded discussion, not a one-sided. So, but anyway, but saying that, when you talk about the mental health aspects of it and what happens to children, ACE research, adverse childhood experiences, which is recognized by the Supreme Court, and it's not even looked at in the family court, talks about exactly what you just said, that it takes up to 20 years of that child's life into adulthood, and does all kinds of damages. I mean, psychological injury, which they like to call mental health issues and so on, but it puts a bad connotation on people. It's injury, just like if you got hit by a car, it's injury and you need time to heal. And this is part of what they're doing in the destructive sense of how this is harming children and families. With saying that, we do have to go to a quick commercial break, but anybody that needs help, watch the commercial break and you'll be able to see how you too can get help.
We'll be right back after a message from Punished for Protecting Incorporated. Each new generation of protective mothers is shocked when they first go to family court and find it doesn't favor single mothers and is willing to jeopardize children. Francesca's harrowing experience with the broken family court system, from which she finally received justice after 8 months of struggle, is proof that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Francesca has one of these unspeakably cruel cases and has responded by shining a large spotlight on widespread failures so other mothers won't be shocked. Punished for Protecting the Injustice System of Family Court by Francesca Amato Banfield, advocate, mother, whistleblower, founder, and TV talk show host of Punished for Protecting. If you are struggling with injustices wrought by our courts, this book will help guide you through the process. Available on Amazon.com. Search Punished for Protecting and get your copy today. Help abolish family court by purchasing Punished for Protecting merchandise. Here are our top sellers. See the link in the YouTube video description to find out how to get your Punished for Protecting t-shirt. Get your high-quality Punished for Protecting t-shirt while supplies last, and let everyone know that you stand for justice. Are you being re-victimized by the family court system? Do you need help with your case? Go online and book a talk with Francesca. Go to punished4beingAparent.com/book-a-talk. Fill in your name, email address, and message to Francesca. Someone will get back to you within 24 hours. Francesca and her staff of volunteers continue to work tirelessly every single day for parents and children who are in need of their help. There have been multiple success stories, including Francesca's, which gives hope to others in similar situations. Punished for Protecting Incorporated has incurred out-of-pocket expenses with zero funding to help families get their children back or to save their children from being taken. We also have provided funds to help with retainers, food, lodging, and travel. We really need your help so we can continue to provide our many services. Any amount is greatly appreciated. If you'd like to donate or sponsor a family in need of help, go to Cash App, Free the Children. And now back to our broadcast.
We're back. So, Jackie, so the jail part is the part that really sickens me the most. I just had a hearing today with Sarah Stanley, and she's now finally being released on her own recognizances after they put $1 million bond on this poor mother for doing nothing but protecting her child from their, not just their
One
abuser.
second, I'm sorry, Francesca, I can't hear you.
Okay, hold on. Is that better? Oh, is that better? She's gone. We're going to bring my guest back in. I don't know if you guys can hear me. We'll wait for my guest to come back in. I was simply saying that I was talking about the arrest side of it, where these poor innocent victims are being arrested. Thank you. I'll just wait for my guest to come back. She got knocked off, but and literally with Sarah Stanley, for those of that have been watching the Sarah and River Stanley story, they had $1 million bond on her. I mean, a woman who's never done anything wrong in her entire life, and she protected her child. And I believe, I mean, I've watched this court hearing from day one, and I saw the most evil stuff happening in this court. And, now she's being released on her own recognizances, as if she's done something wrong, but because they know she's innocent. Long story. We'll get more into it. I'll definitely have follow-ups on that. But Jackie, I'd like you to go ahead and just tell the audience about like the shock. I mean, you're raised in a really good family. You never thought in a million years you'd ever be arrested for anything, let alone how many times? Like, what happened?
Yeah, I actually was arrested in the courtroom 2 different times, and I'm still currently facing. And what's even more mind-blowing is that I was supposed to receive a public defender as my constitutional right before my criminal contempt charge, and Judge Sean Smith denied me that right. So he didn't even give me a criminal defender. He didn't give me a public defender, nothing. So I had to face it by myself, and then was arrested. And I was actually put in a holding cell at lunchtime, and they hadn't even sentenced me yet or anything. And then at the end of that first day's trial, they had placed me in jail and sentenced me to 60 days, which I am currently appealing on a trial de novo through the Superior Court. So it's just insane. It blows my mind. But yes, I was placed in shackles, like I was a murderer, and I was actually, he placed a $50,000 bond against me, which the bondsman in my area that my parents went to bond me out he actually said he had a person before me that pistol whipped somebody and placed him in the hospital with severe injuries that only had a $10,000 bond, and I had a 50. So
It's sick. It's like Sarah Stanley. She had a $1 million bond, and then they reduced it to a 50, and now they're releasing her on her own recognizances. If she was that dangerous, why would you have $1 million bond and then you're free to go? It just goes
exactly
what they're doing, but there's no proper due process. As we know, the family courts have no jury trial of your peers, which is a right, which is your right to waive. Okay, not that they waive it for you. You have the right to waive it. You can't. It's like these are your fundamental liberties, your fundamental rights. You can't just, make it up as you go along. I mean, it's just insane. And how we've allowed this for 6 decades. 6 decades we've allowed this. And it's destroying. This is the whole reason that there's juvenile delinquents, which is a horrible term. And these children don't get to be who they're supposed to be, to grow up healthy and safe and smart and, protected. I mean, So how do you stop being what you know to be normal? Like, I guess that's a bad way to say things, normal, but how do you stop breathing? How do you not do what comes naturally? How do you not protect your children? How do you, and yet the funny, ironic thing about it is child predator services, because that's what I call it, not child protective services. If somebody didn't protect their children, that would be one of the reasons to, do whatever. I don't want to say take them away, but take them away in some cases. And yet the judge can order them into abuse. It doesn't, it's like, it doesn't make any, you can't wrap your head around it.
And then the bad thing is when you start exposing them, then things start to really, so when Fox 46 News and Chief Investigator Jody Barr picked up my story, it all went downhill from there. So it's like you can't even get help from like these kinds of things, or the news, or anybody in higher powers that can help, broadcast this to the nation, unless you just are going to get punished. And whether or not they're going to just still keep your child away, just like what's happening to me. Exactly. So it's exactly.
It is what it is.
And it's funny because Judge Sean Smith allowed Jody Barr to film the first hearing, and then he recused himself out of nowhere. And then once I got Paige McThenia, she has denied 2 different requests, and Jody Barr has still been in the courtroom, and he's still updated my story even without filming it. And she said this last time a couple weeks ago. She said, "Hey, Mr. TV man, I don't mind if you sit in here, but you can't film it." And he just stood up and said, "Well, that's really unfortunate that you believe we shouldn't be able to, as a citizen, film this kind of, situation and what's happening." So it's just nuts.
These are constitutional. There's such an attack on the Constitution, but these are, again, your fundamental protections. I mean, they are their rights, and we shouldn't be fighting for rights we already have. I mean, it's just that simple. And I have to tell you, don't be disheartened, because I exposed Judge McGinty before millions of people when I spoke before the New York State Assembly. He did attack me again after that. I also got him in the New York Post, which was millions of views, and then other newspapers started picking it up. And, I beat him after that. But there's always light at the end of the tunnel, honey. And God is bigger than all of these creeps.
Absolutely.
way bigger. It's not fun to go through it, but we're exposing it, and we're being used to expose it. And you would have never if you weren't kind of thrown into it. So be encouraged. Don't think, believe me, everything is working. It is working. It just, Rome wasn't built in a day. The Berlin Wall didn't come down. It took a while, but it is coming down. It's crashing. And what they do is, and I joke around with people sometimes, and I'm like, what they do is they slither in and then they slither out. It's kind of like, oh, well, mom got all better now, we can give her back the child or the children, because they're not going to say what they did is so absolutely irresponsibly insane. They're not going to say that, so but
exactly, they'll do anything to cover themselves. And that's exactly what if they have one little bit of wiggle room, then they're going to take that opportunity to try and manifest something that doesn't even logically make sense, but something that they can just kind of say makes sense in the meantime. For instance, just like McThenia saying, I don't know if the psychologist that did your first psychological examination had all of the court files before you were, basically interviewed by her, which she did. But that little wiggle room was enough for her to say that, to make me have to be forced to do a second evaluation before I can even, get custody of my son. So it's just unbelievable.
It's absolutely barbaric, and we'll talk off of this more. There are things that you may not be doing that I can talk to you about. I don't know yet, because I haven't we haven't had that conversation so much, because you've been through so much. Every time I go to try to talk to you, I'm like, oh my God, there's more happening. Like, this is so crazy.
Yes.
But to me, it's like, you're just a different face to the same kind of story that I've been seeing, like, for the past 15 years, the absurdity and the insanity. I don't know if you know the story of the Sandra Rucker Grazzini story, and it was on 2020. And
yes.
So, Michael Wolf's done the story, and then I took her story, and I had, like, the first time ever the audio clippings of the kids begging to come home. It was actually hidden. But look what happened to her. I mean, that was some sick stuff right there. And then the 2020 took it, calling it footprints in the snow, as if the kids were trying to escape from mom. In reality, that's not what it was at all, how they put this spin on it. And so people that watch the news and they believe anything that they, that's why I love independent media, because they believe anything that they're spoon fed. These people are out there. They just believe oh, eat this if the FDA approves it. Eat this. Oh, I just ate, 17,000 carcinogens, oh, put this on your skin, it's going to protect you from the sun. That actually is vitamin D. And then it's full of carcinogens. And then the sun bakes in the carcinogens, and they blame the sun for the cancer. No, honey, you put it on your skin, but this is this kind of ignorance because of how people are trained, and they want to believe, they want to live in this tunnel vision, but I mean,
exactly.
It's crazy. It really is, and I won't even say the other stuff or I'll be cut off the air. So I won't even go there with other stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And I do see things daily that are starting to happen, which does kind of, like you said, there's a lot of dark times where you just feel so helpless. And then you're exactly right, is now nobody's going to do it for us. So we have to stand together and do it ourselves. And it's up to us to fix it and to abolish family court.
100%.
And if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it for us. So we have to stand together, and we have to look out and protect each other, because the government is the government and politics are politics. And they're going to be, as long as somebody else isn't doing anything about it, it's just going to continue down the line until we put an end to it. So I do see,
I've even police officers come to me in desperate need of help, and they crapped all over them too. But in the meanwhile, they were the ones taking children from people because they were bowing down to the system that paid them a paycheck. And then obviously you see all the crazy corruption going on in law enforcement today. It's not like it used to be. I'm not saying that there wasn't corruption years ago either, but there's nothing like what we're seeing right now. All right. And it doesn't matter your skin color either. I hate to, break it to some people. When they're ready to get you, they're going to get you, and they blacklist together. It's really quite sick. And as you know, I don't know if you're familiar with Long Island, New York, but Thomas Valva was murdered by his, by his psychopathic father, police officer, and all the judges in Long Island are all in on that one together. And, he was left for dead in the garage. And I think I actually talked about this in the congressional hearing room. Actually, I think I did speak on this. But, there were cameras all through the whole house. $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 was being funneled through his bank accounts. All of that is hidden. Judges actually forbid any evidence to come through. Cameras are missing. Okay, thankfully he's behind bars and the poor child is dead. But again, children taken from their innocent mother. She's like amazing. Okay, she's amazing. I mean, all she does is talk about God. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And now she has her other children back, and CPS wouldn't leave her for a year. Okay, they're gonna check her. What are you, insane? But yes, you are insane. So that's what they did, and they checked her and checked her and checked her, and it's like, you let her boy die. I mean, it's flabbergasting. It really is. It's flabbergasting.
Absolutely. And I actually went to the head of my local DSS because they were doing, they've been investigating my case, and the director would not even allow me into the room to discuss my own case and my own child because I had been on the news, and they said, absolutely not. And they did not remove my child, who's now full of marijuana, from the home. And so they said that I wasn't even able to hear the case or discuss it. And that's
I remember where I was going before when you said that about the marijuana. That's where I was going before. They fooled an entire nation with the vaping, telling them that if you smoke cigarettes, the vaping is going to help you. It's healthier, and it's not. There's actually a pack of cigarettes in each vape. That's how much there is. And so now you got all these people and kids, 9-year-olds, 10, 12, 14, addicted to vaping. And then, well, look at all the adults. Everybody's smoking pot now, so it's all good. And the thing is that no, now they're all addicted to marijuana and vaping, which we know leads to other stuff. And they've been lying to the masses telling them that this is not bad. But if maybe you can't get an overdose on marijuana. People have overdosed on edibles, but you can overdose on, you can still die and kill somebody when you're a chronic user of anything. And then it does lead to other stuff, and it leads to poor thinking. It leads to lack of sobriety. I'm going to let you. Sorry about that. I'm going to turn it over to you for a second because my pug is barking.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, it's you're exactly right about the vaping, and it's like what you said, if anybody from the FDA says something is safe and then people use it, then a couple of years after that it comes out that, it's killed people or there was severe side effects or something like that, and everybody just kind of trusts it and believes it. And you're right that the vaping situation was exactly the same way. And yeah, everybody's getting addicted, but the bad thing also is that my son's father was caught by my PI, actually using drugs in the car and then driving home. And my PI called the Cornelius Police Department several times to try and get him with a second, DUI or OVI. And they didn't even get there in time. They took like 20 minutes to get there. So he would have been, in a lot of trouble with that incident. And it's scary because it does say that there's now that it's becoming legal, there's now a lot more accidents and fatal accidents with cars because the marijuana is so much more potent nowadays than it was, even 8-10 years ago. So it's a problem, but especially, nobody really knows the dire effects on a 3-year-old, especially a 3-year-old with, disabilities already. I don't know, what it's going to do to his mental health or even his physical health because his father has taken him out of all therapy for the past 4 months. So he's getting, medically neglected and, abused. It's just, it's horrible. And nobody seems to care. Nobody cares about, these innocent children and their actual fit parents.
I promise you it is going to turn around. And, I wrote the book, which is your story. It's your story. It really is a carbon copy. And there's a happy ending. And it will turn around. And, and we have, we do a prayer meeting every single Friday night. And I'm telling you, we've been getting one miracle after the other in many different facets. But, we've had some really sad stories come through there. And the minister that's on there, I call him Minister Kevin. He's very old school. He won't use Zoom. So we're using like freeconferencecall.com. And I'm like, don't you want to like see everybody so it could be more of a fellowship? No, this is what I like. All right. But he has a gift of faith. And it's been really like, he was like, when he started hearing all this, he started researching and he's like, wow, and, now you have to just put a level of faith into stuff like this. That's impossible. But what does the Bible say? What's impossible to man is not possible. Is what's impossible to man is possible with God. And we've been seeing so many, aside from like the physical labor and the work that we do, connected with God, connected with the Lord and faith, we've been seeing really good things happening, like in the courts and so on. That, like, I mean, look at Sarah Stanley, $1 million bond, and now she's free to go. That's answered prayer, and
Yeah.
I believe that we're going, families have been going through this. The majority of families that I see going through this are Christians. Not all, but the majority. And I believe
Yes.
that God has his hand on people that may not be a Christian yet, let's say. And there's a reason for it, because by meeting these people, they have very strong morals, they're fighters. To get this thing down, like I said, it wasn't built in a day. It's taken, it's gotten worse over the decades. Our country's moral compass has declined greatly, and there's a lot to say. I mean, I could talk for hours about this particular topic, but there's a lot to say about where we need to repent as a nation to get back to our roots and to get back to the truth, and to stop seeing these things happen, but I won't get into all of that right now. But that's something I welcome you guys to come on, you and your mom, on Fridays. It's very good. And now Hannah, she's my intake specialist. She's going to be doing on the 15th and 30th of every month. She's doing a bi-monthly support group. So, it keeps you going through the process, that you have all these places to go where there's like an army that's behind you, you know what I mean? And it helps you get through it, because it's not easy and it's very traumatic. And because I'm an ADA advocate, I can see it on your countenance, you know what I'm saying? I know that even talking about this, what it does, in one aspect, it kind of brings some healing. And in the other aspects, it's traumatic again. You know what I'm saying? Having to talk about it and rehash it. But I promise you, it will turn around. It will turn around, and this boy will be with you, and you guys will go through the healing process and be able to get past all of this. That will happen,
Yes, I do firmly believe that. And yes, I will be joining the prayer group and the support group, because that is what I think everybody in this situation, even if you're not in this situation, just to kind of understand more about, what is happening in the United States of America. I mean, something that I didn't even think could happen in our nation is just right in front of our eyes. And I do think it's very important. I used to attend a domestic violence group support, which helped me greatly dealing with domestic violence. So I am going to be joining your groups as well, because I think it always helps. It always helps with other people that have gone through or are currently going through the same situation.
Yeah, and knowing that people are praying for you in your situation, or if you're in church, we have if you're in court, we have everybody praying for you at that time. And it's just it's good. And I've seen like changes. God gives us wisdom, like how do we act on this one. I feel we're dealing with, if they're not fully demonic, they're fully possessed, these things that are called judges. There's something not right there. There's just something not right. I mean, human beings don't do this to children and families. There's something not right. It's not of God. I can say that. It's not of God. I guess that's the best way to put it to the audience. But
100%.
You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
But thank you so much for your support, and inviting me to DC, and thank you for keeping in contact with me and just helping everybody. I just wanted to make sure that that you have made some outstanding moves in this area, and I think because of you and because of all of us trying to kind of stand together and stand up for what's right, I do believe that things will start to change.
They will start to change, and it's my pleasure to be there. I mean, I have a major passion for this, and I care about each and every one of you guys, and I've had to live it. So,
Yes.
But I was like, I remember it says it in the commercial, so that other mothers won't be shocked, because it's shocking. It's just shocking,
It is.
But it's good to know that like all these people are here for you as well. Like it helps get through it, because it's,
yes.
Wouldn't wish it on anybody, but
no.
Yeah. But is there anything else you wanted to say to wrap up? And
no, just thank you so much for having me on, and I can't wait. Hopefully there will be more events like the last one in DC, and I just can't wait to see, hoping and praying every day for everybody in this situation, and just hoping that things change drastically very soon.
Well, I'll keep you involved, because we have something, we're preparing for the command, and that's when I'm going to need some help with that. So I'm going to pull some certain people together for that.
Sure.
But I've been really thankful to have you on tonight and tell your story, and I will keep you in prayer, and we'll send you I don't know if I have already, but if not, I will send you the information to both the support group and then the prayer group. So
yes.
You can join us, this week, because Friday's coming up quickly. But again, thank you so much, Jackie, for telling your story, and I look forward to talking to you soon afterwards.
Thank you so much.
Everyone, thanks for watching, and here's our closing. And again, if you need any help, feel free to send a message to the Punish for Protecting Book a Talk link. Thank you.